You're listening to the Fringianity Underground podcast. Fringe topics with a Christian point of view. Now here's your host, Leo Rutledge. Today's episode is titled Realities and H.P. Lovecraft. This is part one of a two-part series where I will be analyzing H.P. Lovecraft's works, the writer from the 20s and the 30s, of horror, pulp fiction, science fiction, short stories, as well as looking at his works through a Christian point of view. And also, if you want to see images from this show and others, I will be posting them on the Facebook Fringianity Underground group page. So feel free to like it and check out the images from this show. So with that, let's begin the first part of this journey. Howard Phillips Lovecraft, August 20, 1890 through March 15, 1937, was an American author who achieved posthumous fame through his influential works of horror fiction, virtually unknown and only published by pulp magazines before he died in poverty. He is now regarded as one of the most significant 20th century authors in his genre. Lovecraft was born in Providence, Rhode Island, where he spent most of his life. Among his most celebrated works is Call of Cthulhu, canonical to the Cthulhu mythos. Never able to support himself from earnings as author and editor, Lovecraft saw commercial success increasingly elude him in this later period, partly because he lacked the confidence and drive to promote himself. He died in poverty at age 46. Now, I plan to cover and analyze in detail and look at the biblical realities and the real realities of 4 stories throughout the next few shows. The first one is going to be the story of Dagon. And then the next one will be Call of Cthulhu. And then the third one will be At the Mountains of Madness. And then finally, The Shadow over Innsmouth. Those 4 stories really eat at the heart of what I think H.P. Lovecraft was really trying to build. They sum up the mythos of the universe that he was building. Now, my take on H.P. Lovecraft and where I come from and why a Christian is talking about H.P. Lovecraft is about 5 years ago, I was really into his short stories via an Xbox first-person shooter video game and a podcast about him and his stories after that. Then I bought the audio books of some of his popular works, which are the ones that I'm really going to analyze here. I really got into H.P. Lovecraft really because I always liked stories about mystery in the ocean, what's under the sea, ancient societies, and all kinds of mystery like aliens. And back then I didn't know much about Christianity or really much about anything. And so I really entered by, the mystery elements. And like I said, I found this Xbox video game a long time ago for the very first Xbox, and I was playing it, and I probably played that game through, the whole story through, at least 3 different times, and I actually, the game wasn't the best. It was kind of creepy, but what I liked is the story was it was amazing for for being an old-fashioned story, so I wanted to know more about it. I actually went to a website and researched what's Call of Cthulhu. So I looked it up. I started getting into, oh, this guy has short stories. Well, I don't like to read, so I thought, well, maybe I could find an audiobook of these short stories or something. Sure enough, I found a bunch of audio short stories. Then shortly after that, I think I Googled it on iTunes and found a podcast that actually talked about that. Like I said, I wasn't a real full-blown Christian. I was still believing the ancient alien stuff. So H.P. Lovecraft really covered the ancient alien stuff really well, considering that some of the mythos actually has, some of these creatures coming down from space, and they created, the things on the earth and made us as slaves, and go on and on. I'll get into that later. So anyway, I eventually became actually really interested in trying to create a world that's similar to what H.P. Lovecraft actually did. So believe it or not, I sat down and I wrote a short story. It was kind of in the same vein as some of the stuff that my favorite stuff from Lovecraft, only I added my own spin on it, like you do, if you're writing something like that. And eventually I'm going to probably read the story on a podcast, the full story. It's a pirate story, but it has some pretty twisted, weird stuff happen near the end. It's much like a Twilight Zone episode. It's very strange, and it doesn't make pirates look good either. This isn't the Pirates of Caribbean. This is more like real pirates, not very good people. And it also ties in with Dagon. Has themes of Dagon, not H.P. Lovecraft's Dagon, but I guess demonic creatures, kind of. When you mess around with demonic things happen to you, so you kind of get what you have coming. But it doesn't have a bad ending, and it's not a satanic story, and like I said, I wrote it a while back, so it's not exactly super Christianized, but there is a nod toward God and some kind of heavenly elements at the end of the story. And like I said, it's a short story. It's only 4 pages, but I gotta do some rewrite because, like I said, I can't concentrate good enough or write good enough. I'm not a writer, okay? So this was rough. But I did print it off the other day, and I'm going to do some edit work on it. So I'll be sitting down to do that at some point. I'm a pretty busy guy at the moment. I mean, I'm trying to do work on the house on the weekends, and I'm also trying to do a podcast. And I still have a giant album. I have to write lyrics for most of the songs still. And I still have to lay lyrics down and sing them, which I don't believe I'm the best singer in the world either yet. But I have to do all these things, and this kind of becoming a big ball of stuff I have to do. But I am not worried about it. I mean, having too many creative things is not a problem. Thanking God that I was blessed to do that. So the story will eventually probably be done, hopefully after this group of H.P. Lovecraft episodes that I'm going to be doing. I'm hoping, because it kind of fits in with that. And it's just like I said, it's not probably going to be a very long story. And I don't know if it's even worth anyone listening to. But it'll be an interesting one, and I'll be happy to hear it anyway. It'll be a free audio book, so that'll be something for somebody, I guess. But anyway, with that, let's get to the meat and potatoes of the episode. Dagon. Written 1917 by H.P. Lovecraft. The first story in the Cthulhu mythos. It all begins when a Navy man that was captured by the Germans in the Great War escapes from the war vessel on a small boat in the sea with some canned food and stuff on it that he sneaks off the ship with. He ends up floating and falling asleep in the middle of the night and waking up the next day on a black, placid, creepy, like gooey, slimy piece of earth that had risen from the bottom of the sea while he was sleeping. And now his boat is landed on it, and there's no water to be seen anymore. So he ends up grabbing the food and resources and walking to see where he's at or if there's any life or whatever. And he sees a lot of dead fish, like bones of fish and everything. And it's really slimy and gooey because of, well, it was at one point the bottom of the sea. Somehow it rose over the course of the night, like earthquake must have broken the ground free or something under the ocean, and somehow it rose or whatever. So anyway, he ends up walking for a long time, and he finds out that it's better to walk at night, because at night he doesn't have the sun beating down on him, so it's not so hard on him, and it doesn't require him to stop so much. So he ends up walking over hills and all this stuff, for going for miles and miles, and he ends up seeing something in the distance, and it's a giant rock, he thinks, shining in the distance, reflecting off the moon. So he assumes it's a giant rock. So he decides to head toward it, and as he heads toward it and gets closer, he realizes it's a giant, dark, kind of shiny black obelisk that was built a long time ago, like a place of worship, some kind of a temple or something. And so he heads toward it, and he gets closer and closer, and then he finally gets there, and he looks and he reads. He could see like ancient engravings on it showing giant fish creatures that have arms and legs. It's basically like a giant fish with sharp teeth, with arms and legs, with a tail. And it shows these pictures on this thing of them hunting giant sperm whales, and they're as big as the whales under the sea. It shows people worshiping this thing, and basically it's Dagon. And that's the point that's being driven across here. And so he's creeped out by this or whatever, and then he's standing there, and as he's standing there, one of these giant creatures sloppily just kind of flops its way up onto the hill and then grabs onto the obelisk right in front of him. And it freaks him out so bad that he starts running back to the boat and then loses his mind, basically screaming or whatever, freaking out along the way, all the way back. And he was haunted by this thing, and somehow he wakes up in a hospital. He doesn't remember how he got to the boat or how he was found or anything. And he ends up waking up in the hospital, but when he was unconscious in the hospital or whatever, he was screaming out things about this creature and all this stuff. And so they basically called him insane. And then by the end of the story, he commits suicide.